Odyssey Files hosts, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Hey, this is Mike Couch from Lost Limbs Foundation. Make sure you check out Mike and Dave on the Odyssey Files because they really need the listeners.
Oh!
Kim, what are you doing?
Well, I'm telling Mike and Dave, it's time to get on the show.
Oh, well, the Odyssey Files starts now.
Good evening, paranormal community. It is 7 o'clock Central Time, which means you are listening to the Odyssey Files. I am your host, Michael O'Neill. With me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. David Soyring. Good evening, Dave.
Good evening, Mike. You don't sound scared.
What? Oh, yeah. Well, I got over it quickly.
I guess so.
I was startled. Let me rephrase. I was startled.
Startled. Better word.
And after the day I have had, is just icing on the cake. Everything is just, yup, from now on.
I'm just throwing my hands up in disgust.
Yeah.
Because I am not happy at all because of the white shit that's on the ground outside.
It'll be gone tomorrow. So
yeah, I know, but it's coming back. That's what you get from Minnesota.
That's what happens in Minnesota.
Yeah, I know.
This time of year.
I know. Yeah, in the back of my mind, it's always one of those things like maybe it'll be one of those years where it doesn't snow until like Christmas Eve, right? Like no ice, no snow until Christmas Eve. That would be beautiful. And then it can snow until about mid-January, and then just I'll be done. And spring can start in February.
I do not mind snow at all as long as it stays off the road.
So I'll give you that. I do like snow as long as it's not snowy and icy on the roads or sidewalks.
Exactly.
Right? It can be beautiful in people's yards. I'm good with that.
Me too. So, or it can snow on like a Sunday afternoon, be gone off the roads by Monday, and everybody's happy.
I'll give you that. I will say this, though. As much as I am not happy to see our first snow of the year, it'd be better than living in Egypt today. Because in Egypt today, some violent storms pushed through, which unleashed hordes of venomous scorpions that I guess freaked out and stung thousands of people. And hundreds of people are currently hospitalized. So it could be worse, right? I mean, like you could be going about your normal day and a whole horde of scorpions comes rolling over a sand dune and takes out your village or your city or whatever.
Is that not like the exact thing of the Mummy?
It's like an apocalyptic sign. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, that sounds to me like that is like the hordes of venomous scorpions, the locusts, that's like, it's in there. It's in that mix somewhere. Hi, Kim. Sorry. Didn't mean to not say hi.
Yeah. Hi. So, anyway, that sounds like a terrible day.
Yeah, that sounds like a bad day for Egypt.
I'm still going to put my bad day ahead of theirs, but I full kudos and compassion for those people bitten by scorpions.
Exactly.
So, all right.
Well,
we do have a phenomenal show again for everybody today. We have obviously stories for the first hour. Again, some doozies. I just want to, in the spirit of full disclosure, explain that I'm not in a forgiving and patient mood. So therefore, I will be more than likely extra harsh should anything on the stupid side come over. Just want to throw that out there. So if you think I'm being extra harsh, please know that it is a semi one-time deal. Like it's,
it's a residual from the day today, right? It's a carryover.
Exactly. Right.
Carryover of negative energy from the day.
But
happens to the best of us.
Yes. So we do have a phenomenal guest. I'm really looking forward to speaking with him. And I hope you know how I suck at names. So I really hope that I say his last name properly. Jay Bloomkey.
That's how I would say it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he's an executive producer on like Ghost Mind, Ghost Hunters, Mountain Monsters, Ghost Hunters International, a bunch of other stuff that I can't even announce off the top of my head. But he is affiliated with all of that, and he is now one of the founders of the Dark Zone Network. So very, very much looking forward to speaking with him. He is also a vendor at the Las Vegas Para-Unity Convention, which is now less than a month away, just a tiny bit over 3 weeks. So if you haven't gotten your tickets yet, do so. VegasParaUnity.com, and you're really going to want to be a part of that because it's going to be awesome. But yeah, so I say let's jump into it because I don't have the patience for anything else.
Nope, we got 6 good stories, so let's jump into them.
Excellent. All right. Story number 1. Ghost Girl is always there. So this writer writes in, this started a few weeks ago. I would feel a cold breeze on my face and ears. On the first night, I blew back out of frustration and opened my eyes. I could have sworn I saw a little girl, around 9, with dark, messy hair. The sensation followed me about everywhere, even outside. Last week, I was in the hospital for 5 days hooked up to a machine. The girl must have controlled the machine because it started talking to me. At first, I thought I was going crazy, but I realize now this isn't true. I could hear the machine as clear as day, instructing me to turn it off. It actually got angry a few times. More to the point, I heard the girl for the first time. From where she was speaking, I could tell exactly where she was standing. I'll admit I was terrified. She could only whisper for some reason. She hasn't spoken to me in a couple weeks, but I can still feel her presence. I don't feel frightened by her anymore. She seems harmless. I think she could technically qualify as a poltergeist since she was able to control that machine and get it to talk to me. Correct me if I'm wrong. I am probably going to be correcting you. All right, but first things first, I want to throw out there, and that is the misuse of poltergeist. So obviously poltergeist that a lot of people have is, German for noisy ghost, but a lot of people attribute any sort of entity that moves something as a poltergeist. And that's not correct, at least to me, because if you ask 4 different people, you're probably going to get 4 different definitions of what a poltergeist is. So let me just explain what I believe it is. Poltergeist, very specifically, is a PK manifestation of a living human. And it can grow if you feed it. If you are the living entity, let's just, for the sake of argument, say it's me. And over the course of months and years, I continually feed it my energy, my personality, my negative thoughts, my everything. Over time, it will develop, it will get more complex, and it can become its own conscious entity. But you could even describe it as an inhuman at that point in time. But it's all based on you. It's not just some entity that came in and started moving stuff. That to me is not a poltergeist. That's just an intelligent entity. So with that said, I do not believe that you are dealing with a poltergeist, because typically, and Dave, you can correct me if I'm wrong, poltergeists do not manifest. There's no body to them. There's nothing for them to show up as. And so they're always going to be like feelings, emotions, surges of energy, things like that. You're never going to see it. So right. I definitely don't believe that you are dealing with an actual poltergeist here. But what are you dealing with? Even Dave's gonna like this. I definitely don't think you're dealing with a little girl, because I don't believe a little girl is going to somehow influence you to try and turn off your machine. This girl did not get the machine to talk to you. The machine was not talking to you. the if anything, again, for the sake of argument, let's just say it's paranormal. The whatever this entity of this little girl was, what was speaking to you, making you believe it was the machine. It was changing your perception of the world and your reality. So if that's the case, definitely not dealing with a little girl. Probably dealing. I'm not going to say demonic, but I definitely don't think that you're dealing with a positive spirit. I think it's definitely a spirit there that is looking for more negative goals here, and either it's like waiting for a next available moment for it to make another pass at you, or you are actually crazy. And for some reason, whatever brought you into the hospital for that 5 days and hooked you up on the machine might have been the start of that. Like you might have started down the road to whatever puts you in the hospital that made you hallucinate everything that you are doing. And I'm assuming, and I've never been hooked up to a machine before and in a hospital. In fact, I've never actually been admitted to a hospital. So Dave will know better than me. If you were delirious at any point in time, you probably hallucinated the machine talking to you.
Painkillers are good. I don't think they're that good, but at least the ones they gave me weren't that good.
Yeah,
I was on morphine.
Oh well,
but
codeine.
Yeah, I mean, they do have they have some hardcore stuff in there. Morphine's a lot stronger than it. Like that. That's like one of the top tiers of painkillers. But I agree with you. Definitely not a poltergeist. I'm gonna say that there's a possibility that this is some sort of medical reason, and I agree with your thoughts on the fact that this could have been the catalyst that started whatever ended this person into the hospital. But I'm going to flip that coin and take the other side of it. That maybe that whatever this entity is that showed up at your house is the reason you ended up in the hospital. Maybe it affected your health, it drained your energy. Happens all the time. Happens to us on investigations. You'll see, you go into a haunted location that's really active and has a really powerful entity, and you will see one person out of the group sit down and say, boy, I just feel drained. Happens all the time. But anyway, so last week you're in the hospital. I'm not sure what kind of machine it is. Regretfully having multiple stays and extended stays in the hospital here in the last couple of years. There are machines that talk to you, like talk. They didn't talk directly to me. They talk, they'll say a few things, but they're not talking to me. So I agree with Mike on the fact that I think that whatever this entity is was manipulating your perception, and that it sounded like it was talking to you, but it wasn't. I think you're taking it, and I want to make this point. I guess this is the reason I took the flip side of the coin here. For you to say that you were terrified, and now a couple of weeks later, you're saying that you're not frightened anymore and she seems harmless. I think that you need to be very careful. I think that you are heading in the wrong direction. I think that just for your safety, whether it's a negative entity or whether it's whatever it is, whatever this thing is, if it really is something, whatever this thing is, I would err on the side of caution in this circumstance, I guess is what I'll say. I don't think that I would just disregard it and say, yeah, this little girl who's 9 years old with this messy brown hair who's telling me to turn the machine off that's keeping me alive while I'm in the hospital, now she's my best friend. No, it doesn't work that way. So, a negative entity doesn't become your best friend unless it's trying to pull the wool over your eyes and set you up for something bigger down the road. So be careful, my friend. That's what I would say. That's all I got.
I was say the only thing that I would add to that then, going down the road of negative entity is, chances are if all of a sudden, it's kind of not really saying anything, but you don't fear it anymore, it's harmless, like that's almost more of a sign of it's already latched on. It's
Right.
already started to manipulate and cause you not to fear it. And so I agree. I mean, honestly, if all you ever do from here on out is feel its presence, let it sit there and do nothing.
Right.
I agree with you. I agree with this person that if that's all it's doing, nothing to be scared of. But
right.
keep an eye out and really understand what you are feeling and dealing with day after day.
Right. If you get people, like if you have family members or coworkers or whatever start acting differently towards you, or somebody comes up to you and says, "Wow, your personality's really changed lately, as of late," that's a sign. I would take that as a serious sign. And I would at that point, I would get some help. I would go talk to somebody and I would get some help just to make sure that you're going to be okay. All right. So moving on. Number 2, it's a long one, so bear with me here. Something keeps harassing my family. This started a few years ago, and so far there's been no explanation of the things that keep occurring. I live in the southern United States near a national park in a fairly rural area, so our first guess was that this had to be some sort of wildlife, something that was just scaring us for no reason than us getting into our own heads. However, after a ton of internal explanations, we finally came to the conclusion that we had none. The first thing that occurred was fairly brief. It was shortly after the death of my uncle, who was fairly close to us before he passed. He was a veteran, and while in the Army, he had volunteered to have shock treatments that altered his personality greatly. This had occurred during the Vietnam era while he was stationed in Germany. My grandmother was in the bathroom, and I was in my room just playing a game when out of the blue the wall sounded as if someone was beating on it trying to get our attention. 3 loud knocks, then nothing. We were worried that something had happened to our neighbor, an elderly woman, and she needed our help, but after we went outside to check, there was nobody there. Fast forward a few months, we start hearing footsteps on the roof. They started out light and easily explainable, something along the lines of a cat walking on our roof. We had seen it happening a few times, so we thought nothing of it until they started getting a little bit heavier. Eventually, it started to sound like something that weighed more than I did was sprinting across the roof every night from one end of the house to the other. Things got worse after that. We started to find dead animals around the property. While some of it could be explained as roadkill, because we do have a lot of problems with speeding due to a lack of police presence in the area, there was also a ton of random things we would find dead nearby. We would find crows and ravens with broken necks lying in our backyard, the occasional snake, and at one point we found a deer that walked onto our property and then dropped dead. There was no visual wounds on the deer's body when we went and examined it. We started to hear things inside the house soon after, see things out of the corner of our eyes that would vanish before we could turn to get a good look at it. Scratching mainly. We've put rat traps and every type of poison we could think of in our walls, but there's no sign of any vermin. We would hear whispers at night like someone was trying to talk to us. We're rational people. We checked to see if there were any cracks in a window or door frame that could make the wind blow in and make some strange sound. But from everything we checked, there doesn't seem to be any openings that could make that noise. One of my old friends, who before this story was as skeptical as I was before these things began, was sitting in my living room playing something on our PlayStation when he thought he saw someone walking past the window. Doesn't sound too scary, right? My windows are nearly 10 feet off the ground because our house is raised to allow water to pass under it to prevent any water damage. And the place he claims to have seen the man at wasn't near any stairs. He came to visit another time about a month later. We were sitting and talking to one another when he said he had to use the bathroom. He goes, and when he comes back, he's pale white and terrified. When I asked him what was wrong, he was evasive to say the least, so we got in the car and drove down to Sonic to grab some food and talk. He told me he saw something staring at him from my room as he was walking back, smiling at him with yellow eyes. He doesn't come around anymore. At least he doesn't stay until nightfall anyway. I don't know if what he claims is true or not, but it still scares me to think about just how scared he was. I've tried cleansing the house with sage. We've got a crucifix in every room now. Near the front door, we have 3. We've even duct taped the back door shut and have it locked to be absolutely certain nothing can get in. A lot going on here. Number one, I really like the fact that they're using rational thought trying to explain things, looking for potential noises, looking for potential vermin, rodents in the wall, snake in the wall, putting out traps, putting out poison. I think that's, being a good skeptic and trying to debunk stuff. And I appreciate that from a paranormal standpoint, instead of just assuming that the devil showed up in your backyard and is now trying to get into your house and destroy everybody's lives. That said, something's going on here. I don't know. It's this progression thing. I mean, they painted a picture of this progression, and in my mind's eye, I can see this, I don't think it has anything to do with, was it a grandpa or uncle? Sorry. It was a long story. Uncle. Okay. So I really don't think it has anything to do with your uncle being a veteran. The whole shock treatment thing, who the hell knows what happened there? Whatever it was, I'm sure it wasn't fun, and it changed him as a human being. So that certainly probably wasn't fun. But I wouldn't see your uncle coming back trying to raise havoc with you guys. I don't know, unless you had a really horrible relationship, but it said you didn't, so I'm going to go with that. But there's this progression, subtle things like cat footsteps turns into somebody like a human being running and stomping. The dead birds in the yard, if it's 1 or 2, maybe. If it's a dozen, there's an issue. The deer walking onto the property and dying. It's almost like the property's poisoned. Like that's kind of what I'm seeing. Like that's the feeling that I get. Like there's something changed with the land, and now this land is kind of toxic, or it's somehow inviting something that's toxic or dark or negative or dangerous, however you want to phrase it. I really don't think the duct tape is going to hold anything out. I just want to point that out. Get a better deadbolt. Put an extra door, like an extra slide bolt at the top of the back door or something. But I really don't think duct tape's going to help you guys. But that said, I think you're at the point, honestly, where if you have not already done this, you should get a paranormal investigation team out to your place, have an investigation done, invite them out, give them the run of the house, leave the property, let them have the place for the night and into the overnight. And then, and tell them it's a priority, and don't let them wait 6 months to get back to you, because they got other things to do. Make it a priority. Like when I had a priority case, all evidence was done in a week and we were back at the client's house. It's a priority. It needs to be addressed. I would say your case is a priority because it's moving in the wrong direction. There's nothing positive that you said that's happening, right? There's nothing positive to offset the negativity. So the yellow-eyed thing, I don't want to jump to demon, but I mean, unless it was some type of animal that had yellow eyes that was in your house that somehow got in your house, I guess I would need better clarification of that. I'm not going to say there was a demon in your bedroom, because if there was a demon in your bedroom and your friend saw it, I'm almost can guarantee you, I'm going to say 99.8% that you would have already seen it too. If a demon's in your house and it's shown itself to your friend and it freaks your friend out, and your friend leaves and you guys go to Sonic and talk about it, chances are good that the demon also would have shown itself to somebody else in the house or done something to start marking its territory aggressively. So my advice, get a paranormal team in quickly. Okay, that's all I got.
I agree with you on that one about the paranormal team. I am not going supernatural on this, because everything to me reeks of extraterrestrial, of alien. And I mean the running on the roof, even the dead animals. You guys are gonna have to give me some leeway here, because I'm gonna go a little off the rocker. But if they're using your property as, let's just say for the sake of argument, a landing zone, if their ship, if their suits, whatever the hell they're wearing, gives off like radiation, birds fly into the ship that they can't see, necks get broken. Maybe the deer walks on the property, walks into a huge radiation, over it goes. Obviously they're running on the roof. They can go through walls. Who knows what their suits do to their eyes. I'm going extraterrestrial here only because, one, the crosses didn't do anything. I mean, they just said they put them up. That's it.
Right.
And I would think that if it was a demon, the crosses going up would have made all hell break loose. And it didn't. It just seems that everything is just kind of progressing as it always did. I think maybe your buddy was just at the wrong place at the right time to see them. Nobody's been attacked. Really, nobody besides your friend has seen anything, from what I understand. It's just,
they're seeing stuff out of the corner of their eye, they said. But when they turn to look at it, it's not there. So it's like the peripheral shadow or whatever. And then when they, you turn to look, see what the hell it was, it's, you don't see it.
Exactly. So, this is, I want to go. I honestly want to go full on extraterrestrial UFO, whatever on this one. And that's why it just, yes, it's going to be weird. It's going to be terrifying. It's going to be really, really creepy, but not, running on the roof or whatever a bunch of nights and killing dead animals first, maybe killing your dog, maybe, later in the progression might be demonic or negative entity. This just isn't
right.
Following any of those patterns. And that's my answer from the other side of things. But I agree with you, whether supernatural, whether alien, get a team out there. An investigation definitely needs to be done, especially to figure out what the hell is going on. Which way does it go? And
right.
and if it is alien in nature, especially whether the people there are there or not, isn't going to make much difference. So, but I would
agree. Yeah, because then you could rule out the paranormal. Because as much activity as they're having, if you bring a qualified team in there that knows what the hell they're doing, I would imagine you're going to get some type of evidence. An EVP or even personal experience, even if it's just personal experiences that replicate what the homeowners are seeing. If you go in there and you're there for the whole evening and you get absolutely nothing, I would have to readdress my thoughts as to whether it was paranormal related or not.
Yep.
But get them in there. Either way, right? Either way, whether it's UFOs or whether it's paranormal related, get them in there.
Exactly. All right, moving on. Number 3, looking for normal, non-supernatural reasons for electronics turning off and on. 3 things are happening. This is an apartment, a townhome building. There are upstairs and adjacent neighbors. I personally have not felt or seen anything out of the corner or out of the ordinary other than what is in this post. Number 1, the light in our spare room that is almost always closed and the light off turns on without anyone touching it. This has happened maybe 10 times over the past month, only this room. Twice now, my powered off phone has turned itself on and started playing the video that I did not have up when I am not touching it. Number 3, my dog stands on the coffee table crying and looking at the ceiling. This is the living room adjacent to the spare bedroom with the light issues. My cat has not shown any weird behavior. Shocker. I do not believe in the paranormal, but I'm scratching my head about this. Anyone have any rational explanations? Could it be wiring connected with adjacent neighbors? Paranormal conjecture is also welcome. I just won't believe it until I see it myself or personally feel something. All right. The light in your spare bedroom. Depends obviously on how old this apartment and townhome building is and what the wiring is like. I would definitely get an electrician, tell your landlord about this issue and tell them that you would like an electrician to come in and look at the wiring. It is very, very possible that, if your neighbor flips a switch in their apartment, it sends, a short circuit or whatever through the wiring, turns on that light. That is very, very possible. Now I'm going to go down to the dog and the cat. Obviously, I've had such a bad day. I don't even want to make fun of cats. That's how bad today was. Not even.
That's a first.
Not.
Oh,
I'm sure one will just slip in there on reflex, but it's not even intentional. But the dog standing on the thing crying and barking or whatever at the ceiling, that could be a rodent in your thing, something that it hears up in the attic, depending on what's above you. Could be a smell. I definitely need more information on the fact that your dog is doing this. I don't think that's paranormal at all either, especially, and if it is, as much as like cats are not known to do anything at all, I think that it would at least raise its head or be annoyed in some fashion by this, and it's not. So I don't think that's paranormal either. I think it's just something your dog senses that you haven't found yet. Now, I've had my phone do weird things every once in a while where I'm just like, what? But like turning on when it's off and then just playing a video that you didn't even have up, that's a little something different. I don't particularly know what to make of that because I deal with my cell phone and it doesn't do that. So, and I don't particularly read stories about cell phone mishaps. So I'm a little not knowledgeable on cell phone workings to say what that could be as a natural explanation. I do know cell phones mess up. They do weird things sometimes that I don't even know what would even cause it. But it is possible that that's not paranormal either. But I'm going to just turn it over to Dave because you might know.
I got nothing on the phone other than if he was standing on Skinwalker Ranch. Because if anybody watches that show, you've seen Caleb's phone do some incredibly weird shit. Yeah. So something obviously on that property is affecting his phone. So I don't think there's anything paranormal going on here at all. And that's the reason I chose this one, because everything's not always paranormal. I agree with you. I think that I would have my landlord in there checking out that light in that room so that I didn't come home to a house on fire or be sleeping and all of a sudden smell smoke because there was some sort of short that was happening from the upstairs apartment that was somehow affecting the light in my ceiling. As far as the dog, I've got that. That's easy. Your neighbors upstairs are carnivores. They're always frying up cheeseburgers and bacon and steaks and stuff like that. And your dog smells it through the floor. And your dog's wondering why you're not getting him the same things. And that's why he's crying. And that's why the cat doesn't care, because it's not seafood. The cat doesn't care about the steak. But the dog's like, smells the beef cooking. Their noses are, whatever it is, 700,000 times more sensitive than ours. So, if your neighbor's cooking delicious food upstairs all the time and you can't probably smell it because it's not wafting through the floor, but your dog can, he's looking for a treat. I've had dogs my whole life. He's not running and hiding. See, if he said my dog was hiding under the coffee table and whimpering and crying and staring at the corner, this would be a whole different, my answer would be completely different. The dog standing on the coffee table, crying and looking at the ceiling, to me, means the dog is trying to get closer to the source of yummies.
Yep.
I'm just saying, right? That's a dog. Like I said, I've lived with dogs my entire life. That's just a dog. Dog smells something delicious. It's going to want to get closer to whatever it is that smells delicious. So that's what I think is happening. So I don't think this is paranormal at all. I wouldn't give you a paranormal answer, but I would definitely have your electrical checked out. So, and I don't know what's going on with your phone. Could just be your phone's motherboard is going bad, right? I mean, just like a computer can freak out. I've had laptops that have freaked out and then just blue screened, but they were acting really weird prior to that. So it could just be a chipset, I guess, or whatever inside your phone. I don't know. You'd have to talk to whoever built your phone. Because right now, and Mike and I were just talking about this the other day, there's so much stuff inside cell phones these days. Who the hell knows? I don't even know how the hell you get LiDAR inside of a telephone. We were just talking about this the other day. The new iPhone 13 Pros have LiDAR in them, for Christ's sake, with 10,000 laser beam mapping. Give me a break. Or 40,000. 40,000 laser beams. 40,000 laser beams and a LiDAR system in a stupid cell phone. Now you know why they're $2,000, I guess, just to make a phone call. And nobody even uses a phone to make a phone call anymore anyway. So,
nope.
Honest to God, I can't even remember the last. I was on my phone the other night, but other than that, I'm maybe on my phone twice a week, actually talking on it, which is just ridiculous. I don't even know why I need a phone. All right, so another long one. Lucky me, I gave myself 2 long ones this time. Number 4, my experience with a haunted asylum. And I know you got to wait till the end, Mike, before you explode on this one. So,
Jesus.
In my home state, there is an abandoned asylum on the outskirts of downtown in a pretty sketchy area. The building was originally a mental health facility in the 40s and was eventually made into a drug rehab center and finally a boys' home where it would eventually be shut down in the 1980s. It's a relatively small building, only 2 stories, and maybe 8 rooms on each floor and 1 large room on both floors at the far side of the building. All the windows in the building are busted out. Go figure. The building has a history filled with tragedy and has a well-known reputation to be haunted. I've been to the building on a handful of occasions, but had never been on the bottom floor due to flooding. I had never had any experiences there except maybe a feeling of unease. There was a day I had asked my husband if we could go. He was hesitant at first, as we had been there a few months before. We usually went every 6 months just for fun, but he eventually agreed and said he wanted to go at 3 a.m. Me being me, I agreed with him. 2 a.m. rolls around, and we are at the asylum with our baseball bats. For protection, as I mentioned, a sketchy area occasionally. We would run into homeless people sleeping there, so it was just a precaution. I also had brought my Ouija board and an EMF reader. This time that we visited, the water on the bottom floor had drained out, and I was very excited to finally go down there and explore it. We started upstairs and swept the whole building, making sure nobody was there. While sweeping the bottom floor, I didn't have any feelings of unease, but I was a little freaked out to see satanic symbols and dead birds sacrificed on the floor. At this point, I had figured the downstairs hadn't been flooded for a few months, as there was a whole lot of graffiti and the dirt on the floor was dry. We started on the upstairs with candles and the Ouija board and tried to make contact for nearly an hour. Nothing. Nothing on the EMF, nothing from the board. At this point, my husband and I are just BSing around because we aren't experiencing anything happening, just having fun. We moved downstairs, and by that time it was about 3 a.m. I was feeling fine at first, and we did a few sessions on the Ouija board in different areas of the lower floor. I had asked to stay away from the large back room as the satanic symbols had made me uncomfortable. After the sessions, we walked around with the EMF detector, and I noticed it was only spiking in the spots where we had the Ouija board sessions. My husband and I were pretty weirded out by this, but we just kind of blew it off and thought there was a rational explanation. My husband decided he wanted to go to the back room. I said it was fine as long as he stayed close to me. We made a little more than halfway when I started to get a gut feeling to not go any further. Every hair on my body was standing on end. I told my husband that we needed to go, and I noticed that he was also on edge. I ended up running down the hall back to the outside alone. It was unlike me to go anywhere alone in the dark, as I'm terrified of it. But this feeling was just too much for me. When my husband and I were both back in the car and I had calmed down, he explained to me that he had felt the most evil presence and the most evil feeling that he had ever felt since a previous haunting he has dealt with. We were both pretty freaked out and decided we were done for the night and wanted to go home. About 3 hours later, I had woken up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. When I was coming back from the bathroom, I had a weird feeling, but I wasn't completely awake, so I ignored it. When I reached the bedroom and closed the door behind me, I saw something out of the corner of my eye. I looked over to the corner of our room, and I saw a hunched shadow figure, not much taller than my 5'4". I stared for a second, but told myself I was half asleep and went back to bed feeling a little uneasy. It was about a week later, my husband asked to talk to me. He told me that he had seen something in the bedroom the night I had gotten up to use the bathroom, as I had woken him up getting out of bed. He began describing what he saw, and I was in utter disbelief because we both had seen the exact same thing. Double exclamation point. When I asked why he didn't say anything that night, he said he thought he was imagining it. Needless to say, we were both scared shitless after that, and I think our fear fed more into the situation. It went to us seeing the figure almost every other night, our ankles being grabbed, and things being moved around and found out of place for the next few weeks. There came a point when I was so fed up that I smudged with 2 different smudge sticks and very angrily told it to leave us the F alone. After that, it just went away, gone, like it never even happened. To this day, I believe it followed us home from the asylum, as we have never had issues in our house before and always left the Ouija board in the car. And she points out here, I had a strict rule about it coming into the house, because that's important. Do I think the spirit was the same entity we felt that night? No, but I definitely felt it came from that asylum. I think this was a spirit that just wanted to mess with us, nothing malevolent. To this day, we have not returned to that asylum. Even thinking about it over a year later, I can still feel the pit in my stomach of when I felt that evil entity that night. Whew! Almost need to get a drink of water after that one. Okay, so let's start out here. You are trespassing in an old abandoned building. You recklessly take a Ouija board into an abandoned building that has a history filled with tragedy and has a well-known reputation to be haunted. I'm going to guess that you probably don't know how to use a Ouija board properly, and you didn't close any of your sessions. You just opened up the floodgates and then walked from room to room doing your session, trying to get a thrill and scare yourself. Because that's what it sounds like, because it says you're terrified of the dark, yet it didn't seem to terrify you to walk into an abandoned asylum with a Ouija board. So I'm at a little bit of loss there, a little bit of loss. The whole satanic thing downstairs, sketchy part of town, abandoned building. Satanists are going to go wherever they can where they're going to be left alone. So the fact that there was satanic ritual stuff down there and satanic symbols, a pentagram on the floor, a couple of sacrificed birds, somebody was practicing black magic, doesn't surprise me in any way, shape, or form. Shouldn't have been there. Once again, no reason for you to be there except for getting a thrill, because that's the whole total vibe I get from this and the whole reason I chose this, even though I didn't want to read that whole thing. I think that what followed you home should have followed you home. And I also think that what followed you home was kind of a little bit of payback for how reckless your behavior is. And that's all I got. And I'm sad it only lasted 2 weeks.
I hate these people. I'm just going to start with that. As you were reading it, the only thing that came to mind was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, you're stupid." So, I agree with you. This was nothing but reckless stupidity of people who don't know what the hell they're doing, and it seriously just seemed to be the people who go to like these events and stuff like that, wanting to be attacked, asked to be, could touch me, use my, like the people who just really do not know what the F they're doing. And
push me down the stairs.
Yeah. Come on, I don't think you can do it. And then they push them down the stairs and they're like, and they freak out.
Yeah.
So
I'm never going back there again.
Right. I mean, these people got exactly what they asked for and exactly what they deserved. And it's absolutely full on. It came from the asylum. One of those, you come in and you screw around in my house.
Yep.
I'm going to come and screw around in yours and see how you like it.
Yep.
And I I'm glad you chose this, not because I can be, an evil prick, but because this needs to be an example story to all of the other people out there who are just as stupid, thinking that they can do what these people are doing and be perfectly okay. And I agree. I don't think that these people understood anything about the Ouija board, especially since she thought leaving it in the car was going to in some way help them out. Oh, well, if we got an attachment, it'll just be to the car. We'll be fine in the
So
house.
when my demonic oppression takes over, it's only going to be when I'm driving. But when I get home and I get inside and I start making dinner, everything will be fine.
Yeah. It's well, I guess you're screwing with my car radio. you naughty ghost, but you just wait until I get out and you can't follow me. You physically make me nauseous, people.
I'm saving this story. It is rare. It is rare on this show when you hear me read a story and go off on somebody. I leave that for Mike. I usually try to give the more compassionate viewpoint on it. But this story, when I was reading it, upset me so much because of the blatant disregard for proper procedure and for just common intelligence that I chose it specifically. And I didn't want to have to read 2 long stories tonight, but I had to put it in there because it needs to serve as an example and a warning for all of our listeners. And for if you're a listener and you have a friend who's doing stuff like this, read them this story, right? Contact us and I'll send you the copy of the story. And let them read it or read it to them, because it is a perfect shitstorm for what is going to happen when you go into places with total disregard and total disrespect. And then you think you're just going to prance around and have fun, get a little scare, and then go home and everything's going to be just fine. And that is not how it works.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm off my soapbox.
Well, in these sort of things, in stories like these, the soapbox is where we need to be.
I agree. That's why, like I said, that's why I read 2 long ones tonight. Because this one was not getting passed up when I saw it. I'm like, oh, no, that baby's going. She's in there for tonight.
Yeah.
And she's 21 and her husband's 23. And I didn't include that, but it was in somebody had asked a question and she posted on there in the responses.
Gotcha.
So young, not 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds doing this. It was young, not teenagers, but old enough to know better, young enough to still be stupid, I guess.
Are they old enough to know better?
When I was 21, I knew better, but it's a different world we live in now. So I can't answer that for you. I don't know. I mean, can people write their name in cursives? Can people write a check these days? Do people even know what checks are? Right? I mean, can people fill out a check? Can you? My daughters, I was laughing when they graduated high school, were like, I've never had to sign my name in cursive. They don't even teach cursive writing anymore.
Nope.
I'm like, no, but you can fly through a text on your phone though, can't you? And she's like, oh yeah. I can write a whole paragraph in like 8 seconds. But you can't sign your name. There's something a little messed up there. So
I agree, but it is what it is. Yeah.
It is what it is. Agreed.
That is a completely different issue than the stupidity that we read here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Right. No, that's just a societal thing. Yeah. This is nothing to do with the paranormal.
Right. So I want to point everybody to the principal at Billy Madison during the movie Billy Madison, where he goes on this long thing about how I am now dumber for having experienced this. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul. Like that is, I want everybody to go on YouTube after the show here tonight or during our commercials and look for that clip. And that is a perfect response to this story. So with that said, moving on. Something that happened to me tonight. I work at a popular chain restaurant that does delivery service. I work long hours and I like my job. Delivering at night is a little spooky sometimes, but otherwise I have no complaints about what I do. Tonight I had an order in the back of a pretty dark neighborhood that doesn't have streetlights, and the neighbors are acres between each other, so it's pretty spacious. I park my car at the client's house and make the roughly 200-foot walk up the driveway. Porch lights are on. I leave the food on the porch as instructed. As I turn to start walking back, I heard what sounds like a large dog bark, but it's loud, and it sounds like it's right in front of me, next to the window next to the window of the front of the house. The guest walked outside right then and said, "Thank you." She was very polite. I said, "Thank you. By the way, do you have a dog?" She replied, "No, but my neighbor has a Chihuahua. She's a tiny thing, little sewer rat." I said, "Thank you" once again and was on my way. I was about to get into my car when I heard a whisper come from in front of me. It sounded like it was only a few feet in front of my car, but it was low and deep. It said, "Come here, come here." And that's when chills went down my body and I booked it out of there, no hesitation. I was nearly in tears, mainly from confusion. What could have possibly happened tonight? Am I losing it? I do believe in ghosts and spirits and such, but what was the meaning of that? I'm sitting in the parking lot of my job as I write this. I'm confused and a bit spooked for sure. Any help would be appreciated, or at least some direction on what this might mean. I love the fact that instead of going back to work, he's taking an extra couple minutes to type this out in his car on his phone, probably a paragraph every 8 seconds.
Probably.
And I honestly don't know what it is. If it was like just the dog barking, if it was just the voice, it might, but the whole come here, that seems to be, that rings the bell with me for some reason.
Sounds creepy.
Whether we've had there are a lot of
it's like a puck wedgie
out there.
It was that puck wedgie story where a guy was walking his dog under the streetlight and he saw that little entity and it kept motioning for him to come with it into the woods.
Yeah, perhaps. I don't
know if that's exactly what you were thinking about, but that we had that story a while back.
Yeah, and that's not far off. Obviously they're out in the rural area. There's a bunch of houses acres apart,
right.
And obviously it's very, very easy to assume that at some point in time this was native land. Although whether there was
the whole United States of America is native land.
Well, right, but I meant like a populated, settled land.
Right.
But yeah, I honestly have never come across anything that just starts with the dog barking and then moves to like a whispered. I don't think he's losing it. Because it's never happened before, and it doesn't seem like it's ever happened. Well, I guess I can't say it's never happened again, since this happened to me tonight.
It was today. It was 7 hours old when I pulled it. So,
right. So chances are it was probably. Well,
it might have happened last night. No, it probably happened last night and just posted it today, type of thing.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
So it looked like it was fairly recent. So.
Okay. Yeah. I definitely don't think the neighbor's sewer rat was what he heard. I don't know. I guess I don't know what animal besides an actual dog would make a dog bark loud enough, but be far enough away where the person couldn't be seen or he couldn't see it. So I'm gonna scratch my head here. Beyond just some passing entity that wanted to mess with them, I don't have any sort of, or puck wedgie, I don't have any sort of rational explanation on this one.
Yeah, I really don't either. I found this one to be kind of interesting only because of the two things combined. If it was one or the other, it would have never made the list for the show. But because it's two things that are kind of distinctly separate from each other, I thought it was interesting. It's fall time, and if you're out in the country and it's cold, as we know, sound echoes, right? It can bounce. It could have been a dog that barked, and it could have possibly just carried a lot farther than it normally would have because of the cold weather. And then he said it was right next to the window of the front of the house. So, I mean, there's distinctly a possibility that a dog over here that's not that far away, but far enough away that you don't see it, but not that far enough away, like even a stray dog, barks, cold air grabs the bark, sends it towards the house, hits the glass pane of windows, bounces back in your face. Could that make it loud? Could it seem like it was loud? I guess. I mean, I'm not a sound expert. It makes sense to me, though. I don't like the whole come here thing, though. So if anything, if I'm going to say that this is paranormal, I'm going to say it has absolutely nothing to do with the delivery driver, and they were just in the wrong place at the right time, and that whatever's happening there is happening on the land. And maybe it's been happening for a long time, and for whatever reason, it was just active, and it was just one of those bad timing type of things. But I don't think they have anything to worry about. I don't think there's like anything's going to follow you. I don't think anything attached to you. I don't think that, I don't think there's any like demon dog is chasing you, looking for your soul. Nothing like that. I think that if it was paranormal, if you can't come up, I think the dog bark is logical. I mean, what I just said is fairly logical explanation. The come here, I don't have anything for that other than some type of entity. So, and if it was, it's a good thing you skedaddled out of there with no hesitation and left and decided that, next time when you have to go to that house, just hand it to your other driver and be like, this lady's a huge tipper. You're going to love this place. All right, go have fun. I'll take your 3 in town here. Okay, so moving on, because I want to get to this last one here because I found it extremely interesting. Number 6, my grandfather's figurines his best friend sent to him from Vietnam. Hey guys, recently my grandfather passed away and I've been sorting through the things he left behind. He had 3 rooms full of things and I've been getting terrible vibes in one of the rooms. I'm a spiritual person, but I'm also super grounded and don't usually get spooked easily. But this room seriously freaks me out. There are these 3 small men-like carved statues that I found out are made from human bone. My grandfather's best friend sent them to him from Vietnam. My grandpa always collected goofy little statues and things like that, so I thought it was just something like that, not human bone carvings. Kind of sounds redundant, so just clarify that is that they thought it was just this goofy little statue made out of soapstone or something else, but it actually was carved out of human bones. These things seriously give me bad vibes. What do I do about this? I've already vocally said I won't accept any bad energy and don't mean any disruption in the house. So they're establishing themselves, establishing their perimeter. How do I get rid of these things? Also, there's voodoo dolls, like really old looking voodoo dolls with nails and hat pins and other things stuck in them. One also has a noose around its neck and its hands and feet are cut off. If anyone has any advice, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, here's my advice. Run like hell. I don't know anything about voodoo. Well, I won't say anything. I know enough about voodoo to sound stupid and dangerous when I talk about it, I guess. So my advice to you on the voodoo stuff, don't touch any of it. I wouldn't touch any of it. I'd probably touch the box that they're in. The box is a box. But I would not pick up any of the voodoo dolls and start playing with them or remove one of the hat pins, or remove some nails out of the other one, whatever the hell's going on there. I wouldn't touch them. I'd put them in a box. I would find somebody who collects voodoo stuff. I would send them to the Voodoo Museum. I bet you they would accept it with open arms. I'm sure there's got to be one down in Louisiana. Look it up on the internet. I'm sure you can probably find a historical location that has voodoo items on display. Donate them. That would be my advice. The human bone carvings from Vietnam would be on the next boat back to Vietnam. I would send them back to the guy who sent them to your grandfather and be like, I'm sorry if you didn't hear, but my grandfather passed away. I really appreciate you sending these things to him, but we thought it'd be best for them to go back to where they properly belong, which is as far away from me as humanly possible. And that would be my advice. Because if you got bad vibes walking into that room, there's a reason you got bad vibes walking into that room. And if you're spiritual and you have yourself grounded and you still feel bad walking into that room, there's something going on in that room. Maybe it's a third object, who knows? But I'm going to start with those two and get rid of them. That's all I got.
Grandpa's an odd duck is what I'm going to say here, just because that's like, what kind of friend is like, you know what? I think John would love. I think he would love these human bone carving statues from over here in Vietnam. What could possibly go wrong?
A whole bunch of stuff.
I am with you. Get rid of them immediately. Whether it's send them back, whether it's burning them, whether it's, I don't know, cleansing them and burying them in there. I don't know, but
send them to John Zaffis.
Send them to John Zaffis. Send everything to John Zaffis.
He'll take them. He just posted some non-creepy looking dolls the other day that he's like, oh, I got these dolls that this lady's thrift store turned completely head over heels upside down when these dolls arrived. So she sent them to me and said she never wants to see them again. And none of the dolls were old. None of them look creepy. So I guarantee you send him some voodoo shit that looks creepy and some human bone carvings. He's going to be like, well, at least these look like they should be possessed or carry some entity. Yeah,
exactly. So definitely get rid of them. Don't mess with them beyond that. And, and that's it. So I got nothing more to add.
Simple solution. No, it's a simple solution. Don't collect stuff like that. Just, I don't know. For anybody who collects odd stuff, I don't know.
Exactly.
Don't collect human bone carvings. Collect marbles or something. Find something a little safer.
A lot of lessons tonight in our stories.
Yes, there was. Yeah.
Alrighty, so we are going to go to break. When we get back, we are going to have. Please, Jay, forgive me if I screw up your last name. The great Jay Bloomkey is going to be joining us. So we'll be right back. You are listening to the Odyssey Files here in the Iron Range Radio Network and the Cosm Network.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. You know, set some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So me and the boys head out to tailgate today and find some other fans in our spot.
Well, it happens.
Cheering for the wrong team.
Oh, this is war.
Even worse, they've got this couch set up and everything.
A couch?
Yeah, it's sectional.
All right, first thing, don't ever use the word sectional again.
Done.
Second, I want you to grab a 4,700-pound tow chain with J-hook and grab hammer, throw that on the back of your truck.
Got it.
Now you're going to Hail Mary the J-hook over the end of that couch. Time to find a better spot for your new friends.
That should do it.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Green light. Hey girl, school zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hey, this is Dustin Perry from Ghost Hunters, and you're listening to Dave and Mike on the Odyssey Files. It's not the best show you're ever going to listen to, but it's also probably not the worst.
And we are back. Welcome back to the Odyssey Files. I'm still your host, Michael O'Neill, who is still my co-host, Mr. David Soyring. Still doing wonderful, Dave.
Beautiful. Just peachy. Actually, better. It was a good first hour. So
it was.
I like the stories. They flowed good today, and I agree with you. I think there was a lot of good lessons in there. I think tonight we're like the lesson teachers tonight.
Exactly. And now it's about to get even better because we're going to announce a guy that I've been wanting to talk to for a very long time for many different reasons. But it's rare when we get somebody who has not only had such a very long career in the paranormal, but has worked on such things as Mountain Monsters, Ghost Mine, Ghost Hunters International, Alaska Monsters. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And so again, you're going to have to correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but let's welcome the great Jay Bloomkey to the show. Yes, there he is.
Yay. And the crowd goes voracious.
How are you, Jay? Besides Frozen.
He's a zombie. He's in spirit form. Jay, you're in spirit form.
Jay, can you hear us? Uh-oh. Jay.
He's staring blindly at the monitor.
Jay!
He's got really slow. He's got a really slow connection.
I know. Are you like in a cabin somewhere?
He's on dial-up.
Uh-oh.
Should we have him hang up and call, try to recall and see if we get a better connection?
Maybe. Yes, he's going to do that. Okay. All right. Well,
he can hear us. So he might call us back. It looks like on his phone, which that would work because we've done that in a pinch.
Yes, we have. All right. So while we're waiting for Jay to come back, and hopefully that will work. I guess let's talk about Vegas Para-Unity.
Let's talk about Vegas Para-Unity.
Because it's coming up in 3 weeks. We got over 50 celebs, including our guest tonight, will be there. He will also be bringing Kristen Luman and Susan Slaughter with him, which is going to be amazing. We've both talked to both of those wonderful ladies, and I, for one, am really looking forward to being have a face-to-face conversation instead of sitting here in this chair over, over the camera. But so you have over 50 celebs. We have over 70 vendors and at least over 24 presentations, whether they're celebs or not, or vendors. There's the VIP dinner, which not only has a full-on like steak and lobster type Las Vegas buffet to it, but then we have two different concerts. The opening act is actually my investigator Sam's band, who's traveling from Minnesota all the way to Las Vegas to perform. Fix the Glitch, love that name, and then we have what is called All Requests Live. So it's a cover band, but all they do is take requests. So instead of just all Prince songs or all Aerosmith songs or whatever, they're all hair band songs. They'll play whatever you want. And so I think that's I think it's going to be a phenomenal time. So go out to VegasParaUnity.com, get your tickets today, and especially the packages, which includes the VIP dinner, and you save a ton of money on convention on 2-day passes. I'm definitely going to make it worth your while. And no, just bring him in. Bring on Jay. The man that needs no introduction. Jay.
Yay.
Hey guys. Can you
What
hear me this
happened?
time? Well, it was weird because I was listening to the show the entire time. I've been on since the beginning, and everything was fine on my computer. And then as soon as you guys went to commercial break, it all went kaput. I don't know what it was, but yeah.
Well, good. I
It's
hope you
it's
enjoyed
Monday.
Yeah,
That's all we always say. It's Monday. That's why we chose Monday, because all the weird stuff happens on Monday.
So now I am on my phone. You guys thought I had a dial-up thing, and no, I was actually hard lines in my internet. I've got 1,000 down and like 35 up, and I don't know what is the problem. So now I'm on my phone, and now it is dial-up.
Phone works.
So.
Phone works.
Well, welcome.
Yeah, good to be with you guys. That was an interesting show you guys have there. Good stories.
I hope that's a compliment.
Yeah. No, the stories were really interesting.
Yes, they definitely can be. So, Jay, I gave a rundown of everybody. Not your full biography, but like kind of your greatest hits. But it's few and far between when we get somebody with your resume. So, I mean, I guess my question is, especially since it goes both from cryptid and supernatural, how did you get into doing this originally?
Just as a kid, I was really interested in these kinds of things. I used to, back when people read books, I used to read books, when I was in elementary school about, just anything that's like mysterious, people who go missing, Loch Ness Monster, aliens, UFOs, ghost stories. I used to love the show Unsolved Mysteries, I mean, that's what I've always been fascinated with. And I remember when I was a kid, my stepdad said, boy, that kid better get a job in TV, because that's all he does is watch TV. And I just would watch all these shows, all the time. So, yeah,
So did he get like the Father of the Year award now for pushing you in the right direction?
I don't think he pushed me. I just think that it was just a natural progression. And, I've always just kind of been lucky to work on shows that I would watch, or things that I'm interested in. Not everybody gets that. I started as an editor. I went to film school, and when I was in film school, I went to school to be a director, a producer, writer, director, and I learned that I could edit, which is something I'd never given any thought to. And so I started editing, and you just heard my computer go, huh? I'm trying to restart it. It's like being really sluggish. I don't know what's going on. Maybe I downloaded something weird and I'm now infected. But I learned I could edit. So when I came out of film school, I had a family already. I was married with kids, and I needed to support them. So I got a job as an editor on TV shows. And the first show that I worked on was a show called Strange Universe. Way back when it was on the fourth network. It was not ABC, CBS, NBC. Actually, it wasn't Fox either. It was UPN, which was the United Paramount Network or whatever.
Yep.
And it came on every night. It was a daily magazine format show. It was 1 hour with a host who essentially read it like it was a news story and just presented all these stories of strange things. We came on every night at 1 a.m. after Sinbad's show. So that if you want that blast from the past, if you go back to that, and yeah, so it was just, every story was a strange story. And then, I did Ripley's Believe It or Not and a bunch of other stuff. And then I remember the woman who is my partner now in the Dark Zone, her name is Kathleen Burns. And I met her when I was working for Fox doing a show called World's Wildest Police Videos. I don't always do paranormal, but when I had worked with her also on Ripley's Believe It or Not, and sometime after that, she met Craig Pelagian, who runs Pilgrim Films, and she called me up and she said, "Hey, we're staffing up on the show called Ghost Hunters. Are you interested?" And I said, "Sure." And so that began kind of my journey into paranormal television. I started on that show season 1 as the lead editor, and then became the director during season 1 as the director of the show was let go, and so he needed to be replaced. So I then started directing the show and did it for a couple seasons, and then did a variety of other paranormal shows. I just other stuff too. I don't only do paranormal, but I happen to enjoy paranormal. It's a great genre, especially reality paranormal.
So
it's changed.
Question for you, from your editing standpoint, and we've had this conversation many times. So I'm really interested to hear your answer on this. So you got your 42-minute window to work with, right? For your hour-long network show. You got to make everything fit. As the editor, was there ever a time when you were editing through and you were like, damn it, I can't get this piece of evidence in there and I got nothing else to cut out? Or was it just like, that just doesn't make the show flow? Because we have a lot of people on that are on paranormal TV. That's why I'm asking. And they've always said, well, there was this time when we had this great, and then they didn't put it in there. And I'm like, damn it, how did that not make, And so they tell us all these great stories about that. So from the editor's standpoint, I'm just curious, is that something that kind of binds you, like ties your hands as the editor also? Or is it more of a creative process?
Well, things have changed over the years, and the way we produced that show is probably very different than the way a lot of shows are produced now. But at that time, evidence is often few and far between. So, there are some investigations where you get one great thing. There are some investigations where you get nothing. But, a lot of investigations, you get a lot of little stuff. And so at some point, you have to kind of decide, well, what is the best thing, and what becomes a payoff? Because, generally when you're developing the show through editorial, that's really where it gets made, and it's one of those things where you have to find kind of your A story, your B story, and your C story, and all of those stories need to pay off at some point, right? So if a great piece of evidence, it may be awesome, but doesn't fit into those stories or whatever, you kind of go with what's going to be the most dramatic thing, what's going to be the most interesting thing, what's going to be the best payoff. So, there have been times where, a piece of evidence just didn't make it because of, but to be fair to that show in particular, the investigators themselves would kind of lead those sorts of things. If they had something that needed to be, highlighted, and they found something that they thought was something really interesting, I mean, that stuff was paid attention to, because that is the granddaddy kind of all the current paranormal crop of shows out there, and it's coming back. But it's one of those things where on that show, the investigators themselves were, leading the investigations. I went into, and I'm sure a lot of people at that time went into paranormal television from the television side, from being a storyteller, but not knowing a whole lot about the paranormal necessarily. And we had to learn it through those guys and what they did and that team. And so a lot of what you would see and how the investigations are run and all that stuff was absolutely kind of from their perspective. So, if something didn't make it on the show, it just wasn't very important to them,
Gotcha.
Not all shows are like that. There are some shows that are very kind of, very, very led through the production. I'm sure there's a bunch of them out there that are like that now, but a lot of them, or some of them, and especially a lot of the ones that I've done, were definitely kind of led primarily by the team.
That's good to hear.
So Jay, I have a question, and I don't mean this in any sort of like disrespectful way, but it's something that I've always wanted to ask. It's something Dave and I complain to each other about all the time when we watch these paranormal shows, all the time, and especially ghost hunters. And I understand their process, their whole, when in doubt, throw it out. I understand Steve is very, very rigid on what he will consider evidence and not evidence, but we've always talked, Dave and I have always talked about, like, they're at a place for a week, like a really haunted asylum or a very active location, and all they present to the client is like one Class C EVP and maybe one personal experience, and that's it. And while I was doing a show myself, I had asked Grant Wilson how to best do a reveal, because the first one that I tried to do, I tried to cut down a 97-minute reveal into like 5, and you just don't do that. And I was like, how best do you go about it? And he had said, well, you just take your best evidence. That's what you put on the show, and then you play the rest later. So if that is the case with them, how, as a director and as an editor, how did you go about choosing, or did they choose it? What evidence went onto the show? And was there ever a time where you left out like a really good piece of evidence for something that maybe would have gone a little faster?
Well, so I'll give you, there's a caveat to my answer, which is I haven't been part of that show for a very long time. So I don't know how they do things now. I don't know how they did things after I left. I haven't been in the field with those guys doing that show since like 2008, maybe. It's been a long, long time. When we did the show, though, it's always a pull between production needs and the needs of the investigators, right? Because they're doing the best job that they can do, and what they do takes a lot longer than we have time for. So as I remember anyway, on the shows that we did when I was in the field with those guys, they would play everything that they thought was something of value or of interest or was some evidence. There was, as I remember, there was always room to discuss things, no matter how big or how small. And but obviously, for the sake of telling a story and the drama of things, you'd save bigger things towards the end. You'd start small, right, and you'd build towards something that would be big or more dramatic or whatever. But it was always from their perspective. They were there to help people. When we did the show back then, the tagline was, we're TAPS, we're here to help. And there was a lot more of that going on in the early years than later. Almost all the shows have become kind of like the, flavor of the month paranormal location or a famous spot or whatever, a tourist kind of thing, it doesn't mean that they investigate differently or that they, don't care about the investigation. It's just that, originally there were a lot of people that they were helping. And so I think that, as I recall how we did the show at that time, it didn't matter how big or small the evidence was. They would always present everything that they got that they thought was of interest. Now, whether that always made it to the show or not was not always, something that they had control of. I mean, they did have control of very specific things, but, there was a showrunner on the show who was not me. I was in the field with them directing. So, what you do is you do your best and you capture everything that you can capture on tape and you send that back and then it's out of your hands. Now, when I was editing the show, I was, part of that machinery. But then after the first 10 episodes, I was out in the field. So, but, I don't know if that answers your question. I think that, there's always going to be two different perspectives on it. There's going to be the production end of it, and then there's going to be the team themselves. And I don't ever remember them, like picking or choosing. They presented what they had, and that was that. And, if it fit into the story that was being told, that would be a different kind of scenario,
So I'm wondering, growing up, you're like me. I lived in a paranormal environment. And so the only thing I had to turn to at the time was the library and reading. And because you didn't necessarily take the risk of going and talking about it to anybody else. I remember talking to my priest about it and then getting that look like, we don't talk about that stuff in church, Dave, type of thing. And so that was a closed avenue for me and whatever. But anyway, I'm curious, have you had a moment since you like the paranormal, and I know you do other things other than the paranormal, but have you had a moment in your life that is your like aha moment where you know for a fact in your heart that the paranormal exists? And if you have, what was the moment?
I often will tell people that I must be dead inside because I don't ever have experiences, right? I mean, it's kind of the perfect job for me because I find these locations to be the most peaceful, kind of serene locations. A lot of them, if it's an old mansion or something, they're just beautiful. And I always feel so kind of at home in them. Now, the investigators that I'm with, some of them will have, feelings. I mean, Mike, you were talking earlier about, getting a heaviness, and there's always somebody in the group that's affected and stuff. That's never me. I see it happen to other people, but it's never me. But I kind of came into paranormal television wanting to believe and wanting to have an experience and wanting to see something. And it never happened, except for I did have a couple of strange experiences that I couldn't explain. Both of them occurred on Ghost Hunters. I actually did have, something happen at the Queen Mary when we did our live show, which was interesting, but I don't know what to make of it. It was not just me, but my partner Kathleen experienced something as well at the same time, and we think we experienced the same thing, but it was seen differently. But I would say probably my most kind of profound experience was at the Shawshank Prison, Ohio State Reformatory. So when we would shoot the show at that time, I don't know how they do it after me or now or whatever, but at that time we were on the road a lot. And, that caravan was like part of the travel, and part of what the on-camera vehicles were also just the vehicles that we traveled in. And we would go from location to location, and all of those locations were being set up by the production company in Los Angeles, and they would just give us our marching orders and we would go. Like the team would say, we want to go to this place, we want to go to this place, to this place, or there would be a location where a family would say, we need help, and we would go. But for some of the bigger locations, that stuff would be organized by the production company and you just go. And so when we get there, it's the first time I'm seeing these places. And, you know, I mean, some of the guys, some of the investigators had been to some of these places before and they're familiar with them, but I wasn't. And I'm also approaching it as a director. So when I get there, I get out and I'm walking around and I'm trying to figure out what's my first shot? Where am I putting the camera? How am I going to, you know, showcase this place so the audience, like, you know, wants to be interested in what the story is that we're telling. So and then I don't know how they do it now, but back then all the episodes started with, you know, the kind of the arrival, the meet and greet, and then there was a tour, and whoever was the site rep or whatever, or the person who owned the home, they would take the team around and show them and tell them, you know, here's this room, these things happened in this room. Okay, go to the next room. These things happened here. So they give you kind of a setup for the audience to, you know, kind of the anticipation of what could happen and, you know, how are they going to investigate and are they going to investigate those claims, right? So I would do the tour by myself because I need to figure out what the best way to kind of, you know, unveil the information would be. And so I would go into these locations, get a sense of them by myself first, or with my director of photography, and we just go from room to room and just look at things. Well, in this case, I was by myself, and I went into the cell block, and it's got several levels, and I went up one level, and I'm walking down, and by the time we got to this location, it had been kind of closed for about 6 years, I think. Because it was operational at one point, and it had been closed for about 6 years, and it was already being kind of reclaimed by nature. Windows were broken, birds were flying around, you know, things were growing on it and in it, and all the paint was coming down and peeling and stuff. And there are these kind of pendant overhead hanging lights, you know, all down the cell block. And so I'm just walking and looking and things and, you know, trying to figure things out. And I don't know why I looked down, but I looked down over the railing, and underneath me, I saw this black circle. And it was like so absolutely black. And it was a really defined circle with sharp edges, like just an absolutely perfect saucer about, you know, 8 feet across. And it was like, you know, as if Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner slaps down that circle in the middle of the road, you know, and that's what it
falls
looked like.
out.
But big. It was big. And so I look down and it starts to move. It's underneath me and it starts to move. And I'm thinking, is that a shadow? It doesn't look like a shadow. And I look up at the pendant lights and there are no birds flying underneath the lights or anything. Nothing was really casting a shadow. And it moved, and it kind of glided across the floor really slowly, and then disappeared underneath the stairwell and just went right into the wall. And I have never heard anybody describe anything like that before. I've never heard that story from anyone ever on any of my travels. It's something I saw and experienced, and, you know, it's like one of those things that's like, I know what I saw. I don't know what it was. I wasn't scared. I was curious. It went away, and I've never had anything like that happen again. And, you know, as we would often do on the show, is if somebody in the crew had an experience, you'd get the camera out and you'd interview them in case you needed it for some time. And so I submitted myself to an interview, and we talked about it and stuff. And there was no way to connect it to anything. It didn't make sense. So there's something that happened. It was a personal experience. It was one of my only ones, and it never made the show because why? There's no reason for it to. It just didn't fit in with anything, and it was so odd. But yeah, it's something I can't deny that it happened. I don't know what it was. It's, I think, paranormal because it's not normal. So you know, it just, I don't know how to explain that. And I'm sure you guys have never heard a story like that before.
Not
a lot of
8
stories,
foot across
not that one.
Circle.
No.
Yeah.
No.
No.
Nor have I heard anybody ever use the Wile E. Coyote, throw the disc on the ground and he falls through the bottom of the mountain either, which is great because that's my Saturday mornings were spent watching Wile E. Coyote. So, but yeah, so that's.
If you believe in portals, was it a portal opening up there that I happened to witness? I don't know. I don't know what it was. You know, who knows?
Cool experience.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I'm going to ask you this question, and I think you'll be able to not only answer it, but kind of move into obviously the dark zone, TV that you are now doing. So you've been a director for a very long time, since pretty much the beginning of paranormal television, and you've been on many shows, and you still do this today. What is your opinion from how it started to what it is now of what passes for paranormal television nowadays? And like I said, now I know that you're starting Dark Zone, which I think has a lot to do with that opinion.
Okay, so I think that when I started doing Ghost Hunters and I met the team, one of the first things that they said to me was, "This is not how you do it. This is not." I mean, it was always kind of a little bit of friction in terms of representing what they do properly, but also making a TV show. And when I got out there, it became evident that the time that productions do something based on the money that the company wants to spend, or the network or whatever, it just does not allow for a proper investigation. They told me we would investigate this place for a month, several different times in different conditions, and with different people here, and we would then review the evidence over the course of months, and we would go back and follow up and all this stuff. And so I think that when you grow up watching those shows and you become a paranormal enthusiast and you want to start your own group and you think that that's how it's done, you're not really doing it properly. Now, if you study and read books and reach out to these guys and talk to them and really learn how to do it, or go out and kind of do things your own way and practice and develop your own style and everything, you can be doing it right. But if you're just following the shows, and I think that a lot of the shows you see today are people who grew up watching that show, and they just are either really great personalities for reality or whatever, and they get a show. I just think that we're seeing a lot of bad practices, like that one letter that you were reading. There's a lot of bad practices out there. But again, it is a field that you can't quantify, really. It's hard to prove anything. Evidence is often really subjective. So it's one of those things where it's like, the shows that I see today, I think a lot of them, first of all, I think the investigative show has become a little dry. All of the, we did it first in terms of the IR cameras and the green and white, or the black and white, whatever it is. There are shows that are moving away from that. I like that stylistically. I think that things could look better. It doesn't always have to look so crummy. When I did the show Ghost Mine, I feel like it was the first time that I had the ability to shoot something beautiful and make it look a little more cinematic, because of the great outdoors and the fact that we were in one location for a very long period of time. We could really focus on it and make it look nice. But the shows don't have to be so crummy looking. Some of them are getting better looking. They've got better production value and stuff. But the real impetus for doing the Dark Zone was not that I wanted to move away from paranormal television so much because I was unhappy about how the stories are being told. That is true in some aspect of it. I don't like having to always kind of follow the vision of what the network wants, or what they're looking for. I always have felt, there's only been a couple shows that I've ever been able to do where I felt like I was allowed to be, creative the way I want to be. You're always kind of following somebody else's agenda. But the Dark Zone really came about because when I was doing Ghost Mine and I thought it was an amazing show, the network, which was Sci-Fi, decided they didn't want to do ghost shows anymore. They wanted to be the fanboy network. And so they got rid of everything, and they kept Ghost Hunters and Paranormal Witness, and that was it. All those other kind of cool shows that were happening at the time, and our show had really decent ratings. It just was like it wasn't in their agenda anymore. Their branding had changed. So I was kind of like, wow. Not only career-wise, but in terms of being a storyteller and wanting to tell these stories, I was thinking I have no outlet. I've got nowhere to go with this. And then you realize you're kind of at the mercy of a network and what their particular needs are at that moment. And so I just at the time I said to some of my friends, and some of them are still with the Dark Zone, let's develop something where we can just do this anytime we want, and we can tell our own stories and develop little web series and so forth. And it's morphed and become something different because we've been kind of doing it since 2016, but it was more of a hobby for a long time because I still have a family and I still have to pay bills and I still have to do shows. And when you're running a show, you really kind of have to put your entirety of yourself into it. Otherwise, you're going to shortchange it. So the Dark Zone took a back seat. It wasn't really until the pandemic that we had the opportunity to start doing these live shows. And now it's kind of the Dark Zone has kind of taken off. And with these live paranormal investigations, one of the things that we don't have to worry so much about is like reviewing evidence. Evidence, reviewing evidence is one of the hardest parts of an investigation. It's the most time consuming. You really have to have a good focus and attention to detail. And when we do these live events, the people who tune in to watch the show or, buy tickets to watch it, they find the evidence and they send it to us. And it's the most amazing thing. It's so great. Our audience, our fans, they're the best, and they pick up on so much stuff, and they'll record it on their screens or off their screens with their phones, or it's, when you're watching the show, you can usually go backwards and rewind and stuff and review things, and they just do it for us. There's thousands of people reviewing evidence for us. So you're kind of outsourcing that, crowdsourcing evidence review. And some of it is dust or, a shadow that you can figure out what the source is, or, it doesn't make sense. But some of it's been really good stuff. And we highlight that stuff. So that's been a good, kind of positive side effect of doing the live events. But then because of the pandemic, I've been able to focus a lot more time and energy onto the Dark Zone. And so now we've got an app coming out that is going to be kind of like a social media app, but we're trying to kind of put everything, a lot of people in the paranormal, a lot of our friends in it. They have fan pages. I would show it to you. I was going to show my phone to my computer, but now I'm on my phone. And so I can't really do that. And it looks like my Mac is all messed up. I could probably show you.
Oh, well, that explains your computer problems right there.
Yeah, the app is haunting
Mike hates
my computer.
Macs. Yeah, he's an anti-Mac guy. Yeah.
Why do you hate Mac so much?
It's the cats of the computer world.
That's funny. I kind of get that. In the entertainment industry, everything is on the Mac, so that's kind of what I grew up or learning and knowing. I don't know if you can see. If I go like this, is everything backwards?
No.
No.
Oh,
not at all.
Hold on.
No.
I'll pull the app up. If it's working, I don't even know what's going on with my computer. Nothing.
That was my next question.
So Jay, while you're doing that, I got a patch on the back verbally since I'm a long ways away from you. But I think that you've had this epiphany moment that is going to change the world of paranormal. You have gotten people to pay you to do evidence review. And you're getting them by the thousands. Because being an investigator for over 40 years, I can tell you that the worst part about the job is sitting in front of a screen watching a static cam for 8 hours,
right,
or listening to audio for 6 hours, and having to be alert and attent the whole time you're doing it. Because you can't like put your headphones down and get up and go take a pee and get a glass of water and come back. You can't do that. Right? I mean, you have to be intently listening, looking for where's that one piece going to be? You know, it might be anywhere in there. And people don't understand that.
Right. And and it's worse for the guys in the shows because of all of the angles that go up. And, you know, I mean, they get the DVR systems. They're looking at one room from several different angles at once. And they dedicated days to doing that. And it was, I'm sure that we would frustrate the hell out of them going, come on, we got to get the show going. We got to do the reveal. Come on. You know, and they've got to go through all that stuff. And after you've done an investigation for a night or two and you're like working until 4 a.m, you don't want to get up and do that.
No,
you know.
No, you do not.
So yes,
No.
I may be the modern day paranormal Tom Sawyer, getting people to whitewash my fence.
You're a pioneer, my friend.
All right, so here's what the app looks like. I don't know if you guys can see it.
Kristen.
Hey, Kristen.
So this is kind of like the main feed, like would be on your Facebook, you know, kind of page. And let's say, for example, we wanted to look at Kristen's photo. Actually, if we went to Kristen's fan page, oh, that's always good. Nothing shows up. Okay. If we went to
Kristen's fan page, it would be blank.
Susan's fan page, right? We go to Susan's fan page. She's got pictures in there. And then we've got, you know, this photograph of her, and you can comment on it. You can say, you know, hey, I love your picture or whatever, and you can like it and all that stuff. And we've got, you know, a ton of people in here at the moment, but we want to get more. We've got a bunch of people. A lot of these guys started the Dark Zone with us. Some of them are new. And then if you go across, you got shows, and you see we have our content in here, The House, Lizzie Borden, Queen Mary, the Los Angeles Police Museum. We're going to add the latest thing that we did. It's going to go right in here at the Conjuring House. Then we got some paranormal web series that we developed with our guys over the years, some things in here. And everything is free, right? And then Colin Brown's with the Paranormal Files, Is This Paranormal, Stories with Sapphire, Monstrum, Haunt Me, all these cool series that we've got in here, and it's all free. Every little bit of it is for free, except for these guys, except for these things that we had to charge people to pay for or to see in the first place. If you bought a ticket to any of these events up here, this stuff you still have to go in, and you know, like you can see they're tagged right here where you have to pay for these little bits. It's only 99 cents per segment. So it's not that big a deal. And maybe nobody will buy them, but maybe people will be interested. We'll see. And we have a podcast center, and then we have the live thing, which is still happening. And then over here, we've got a calendar of events. Look at this. What is this? Vegas Para-Unity. That's in there. Yeah. So, and if you click the link to buy a ticket, it goes right to the Vegas Para-Unity website. It just pops right up. So we just link it right through there. Right. So that's a fun thing. So anybody who's on here, who's one of our main talent and stuff, they can put all their events in here and stuff. And then we'll put events in there that people want us to put in there too. We've got our store is the next thing. And then we've got, oh, that's me. But I think one of the cool things in here is groups. You go to groups, you can create, anybody who uses it can create their own group. So Brandon Alvis has his app right here. We've got TDZ Evidence Review, Haunted Orange County, the Seance Room. This is Andrea Perrin's Buttercup Brigade, Tennessee Wraith Chasers, the Lizzie Borden House. You could be a paranormal team. You could be a location. You could be anything that people can upload stuff and talk about is what you can do here. And these are created by users, right?
Cool.
So it's cool. It's very cool. So it's kind of like all fun paranormal stuff all under one umbrella.
So Jay, I mean, how do people find the Dark Zone, and how do people find the app?
So the app is not released yet. One of the things that we want to do at the Vegas Para Unity is kind of release it, do a little soft release for the app there.
Yeah.
We'll do a presentation, but we're not going to release it until it's perfect. And I happen to be a bit of a perfectionist. So there are some things that we're still testing, and we got some beta testers looking at it, and things that don't work the way I want them to. And as you saw, the podcast and live section aren't quite there yet. But yeah, we're working on it. So we're thinking it'll definitely be out by the end of the year, but I'm not going to let it go until it's perfect. So we'll see.
It looks busy. It looks like you got a lot going on there. Cause I was thinking to myself, I'm like, there's a lot of stuff going into this app, man. A lot.
It's fun.
So,
it looks a little different on the desktop than it looks on the phone. Like on the phone, those panels are kind of individual panels that you can see one at a time, and the controls are a little different. But on the desktop, it's all there in front of you. But yeah, it's fun. I mean, just the content alone that we have in there for free, you could be in there watching that for months. There's just so much stuff in there. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
So obviously, I'm just going to put this out there, quite egotistically, I might add, but your podcast section is never going to be complete until it involves a show called the Odyssey Files with Dave. I just want to throw that out there, that if you're a perfectionist,
that would be awesome.
It's never going to be right until it involves us.
And that's one of the things that we're working on is we're working on getting like an RSS feed player thing in there. I think we're going to settle on iHeartRadio. I don't know if you guys are part of iHeart, but yeah, anything that you can get through iHeart, you should be able to get through the podcast here. And then ultimately, it's just kind of like we're curating content, just paranormal stuff, good paranormal stuff. So yes, you guys will be part of that.
Paranormal stuff. That's the good stuff right there.
Exactly.
All right. Now getting off our throne, because we've promoted ourselves from the soapbox to the throne. I do have a question, kind of going back to what we were talking about just before, when I was kind of talking about paranormal TV as it was to what it is now, and I'm wondering for you personally, as a fan of the genre, as somebody who's been a part of these shows, do you miss, or do you think that they should, like, these shows should go back to actually helping families? Because no show helps anybody anymore. It's all haunted mansions and asylums and prisons. And
doesn't Kindred Spirits do that though? Don't they go in and help families still?
They did.
They did
first couple seasons, but they're not now.
Now they've transferred over to Salem and Lizzie Borden and that sort of thing.
So now that you mentioned Kindred Spirits, I just got to throw this out there, because this is the other question I wanted to sneak in before the end of the show. In year 3 of their show, and I told Mike this right the first episode I watched because he hadn't seen it yet. I said they changed their intro, and the intro is completely demonic. The whole thing is about blood and like Satan's head, and it's got all this darkness to it. And when the show came on, it had nothing to do with helping families anymore, and that kind of nice Amy Adam relationship thing was gone. It wasn't there anymore. It was more like everything, we have to go hunt the negativity. And everything seems to be going that way. Everything seems to be going towards demonic these days. Like, everybody thinks everything's demonic. And less than 1% of anything you're ever going to run into in your life is going to be demonic. And probably 90% of America or the world is never going to experience anything demonic, because it has to be the perfect storm for something like that to show up. It doesn't just show up arbitrarily.
Right. I never ran into anything in any of the cases that I've ever been part of or documented, in any of the locations I've ever been to, and there's been quite a few. Never ran into anything that seemed dark, like that. And I think what you're getting is, and I can't speak specifically to that show, because I don't really watch a lot of other people's shows. I did see some of the first seasons, and I liked it. I thought they were doing some some things that needed to be done because I think we've gotten away from helping people. But you know, I think you're seeing kind of the results of a network deciding that, you know, they've got to do certain things for the ratings. And, you know, I although again, like I said, I can't speak specifically to that show or this situation, but I think you're also getting some of the spillover of the popularity of the Warrens stories, and you know how people I think view the paranormal based on those films and the success of those films, and the Warren stories in general. And I've always kind of thought, you know, if you're a demonologist, everything you're encountering is you're going to see it through that lens, and you're going to think it's a demon, you know. And so it's one of those things where, I don't know, demons are kind of sexier. They're more interesting to the fans, you know, and I'm sure it's frustrating for the investigative teams because, I mean, what's the goal, right? And
Right.
that's one of the things that I think we can do with the Dark Zone is get back to the original goal of, you know, the paranormal is a conversation. It's research. It should be research. We should be trying to figure out what's really going on. I mean, has there ever really been definitive enough proof that everybody can agree upon of a ghost's existence, right? You know, it's just one of those things where it's like, we're still at that point where it's like, do they even exist? Well, something's happening. We know that something's happening. It's such a common shared experience throughout the world and all cultures, you know, aliens and UFOs, something's going on. What is it? You know, Bigfoot, too many sightings, you know, and every culture has its own Bigfoot story, or creature or something, right? So something's going on. What is it? To me, it just seems like we should be getting back to what's going on, finding the answers. And that's always what, you know, when I started doing this, the teams that I worked with, that was what they were about, trying to find the answers and document and, you know, try to show proof and debunk, you know, what obviously is not proof, you know. But it just, I think a lot of the shows now are about, you know, the scare, which I, as a storyteller, I like to do. I like to scare people. But, you know, with the Dark Zone platform itself, I think we have the opportunity to get into the conversation a little deeper, you know, have all these points of views and perspectives, and allow people just at home to, you know, kind of get their input out there and have the conversation continue. As long as, you know, one of the things that Susan Slaughter has always said too, we've said together, is as long as you're not like hurting anybody or hurting yourself, you know, all perspectives are kind of valid if you're furthering the conversation.
Do you think that you're going to be able to keep your platform, the Dark Zone, in that capacity of like honest, open freedom of conversation? I mean, is that your long-term goal? Or do you think that it's going to change regretfully because of outside influences that are going to start forcing you to maybe cut corners or do things a little differently? Because it sounds like you want it to be an open, honest format for conversation is what I hear you saying.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the great thing about it, is that nobody owns it except for my partner and I, right? So nobody's telling us what to do with it. Now, as you know, industry people who are producers and who also are storytellers, you know, we understand that you want to mix enough entertainment with it to keep people interested. You know, you want to have some of the shiny objects to get people to even come and look in the first place. But, you know, once people are here, we feel like the conversation should keep it going, and we just have to get them engaged, you know, so that they can talk about it. And that's why I think the groups section, the thing that I showed you where, you know, anybody can start a group, is going to be the most powerful aspect of the app itself, because that's where these conversations are going to be born, you know. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. And I don't know, you know, if we'll ever have the answers that we're looking for until we pass, maybe. But, you know, if there was some way to actually document and figure these things out, we certainly want to be part of that conversation.
I respect that.
Mhm. Absolutely. Now, for anybody who wants to find just the Dark Zone, not necessarily the app because that's
Okay.
not out yet.
Right. So we kind of have our most traffic and followers on Facebook. So if you go to Facebook, you can find the Dark Zone. It's the Dark Zone Network, or you can just type in the Dark Zone and you'll find the page. We've got about 70,000 odd followers on Facebook, and then on YouTube we have the Dark Zone Network channel, which has a lot of our stuff on there, just the content that we've done over the period of last few years. Got about 45,000 subscribers there. We're on Instagram too, but we're not really active on Instagram, primarily because I don't know really how to use it. It's something my daughter uses, so it's like, the Dark Zone really is kind of just a small handful of people doing everything. So we have a presence on Instagram. We have a presence on TikTok, but I don't use it because I don't get it. But, Facebook we're pretty active on, and Facebook is where I think most people would be able to find us. Then we've got there's a fan group that developed also, the Dark Zone TV fans, that's got its own little group going. And then there's another group called the Seance Room, which kind of was born out of our first event that we did at the Conjuring House. 3,000 of our very active audience members splintered off afterwards and went and created their own group in Facebook called the Seance Room, where they all hang out. And that also was one of the reasons why we wanted to do the app. It was like, well, wait a minute, why are you leaving us? Stay with us. Let's keep talking.
Right.
So
right.
So it's I would say, and then the website is thedarkzone.tv, and primarily the website it functions mainly to tell people what we're doing and how to get tickets for things and stuff like that. But the app is really kind of taken over what the website was. So the app is going to be the thing that is going to be our kind of most active platform, hopefully. So if we can kind of get the people that like us on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and kind of push them all towards the app, that would be the perfect ideal situation.
Sweet. Jay, thank you very much for coming on. That's all the time that we have.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Even though we could have easily have brought you in right from the beginning, I didn't know that you were there and talked the entire 2 hours. But for the next time. But you can see Jay and Susan and Kristen and others from the Dark Zone at the Las Vegas Para-Unity Convention. So get your tickets for that. VegasParaUnity.com. Jay, thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I'm excited. I can't wait to meet you guys out there.
Sounds good.
Exactly. So that does it for us. We'll be back here with another episode next week. Shane Pittman will be our guest, hopefully. But stay healthy, stay safe. We want to see you back here next week. Everyone have a great evening.